Welcome back to Chalk Talk. Erik Ten Hag wins the Manchester derby. I'm again joined by Josh Ring. Welcome back, Josh. What are your initial thoughts?
Controversial, interesting, but fantastic for the Premier League to have that. And the big questions come out of it: are Manchester United in a title race? That's a big question. But yeah, I loved it. What about you? Did you enjoy the derby?
Yeah, I thought it was a good watch. Obviously, 0-0 at half time, wasn't it? Little bit cagey, probably both teams not absolutely going for it. I think Erik Ten Hag set his team up really well, and we're going to get that up now on the tactics board and have a little chat about that. So initially, we saw that he's lining up in this 4-2-3-1 formation. And I was quite interested with actually the tactical nuances of what they look like in possession. Obviously, Martial did come off at half time. So just to bear that in mind, but this was the starting lineup. And the rotations were quite interesting because Fernandes, it was obviously started on the right here, but obviously that's not really his natural position. He prefers to occupy in the centre position. And there were instances in the game where we've got a few arrows on here in terms of what was actually happening in possession. Both fullbacks bombing on, Casemiro dropping back into the pivot, and it sort of rotated round with Fernandes pushing infield. And Man United sort of had this sort of shape in possession. So again, that extreme overload in midfield with that sort of diamond shape, Casemiro at the base of the diamond there, Eriksen at the front. And you've also got Rashford, sort of a bit of a lopsided front two with Rashford coming off the left side there. Found this quite interesting. Obviously, I feel like that's Rashford's best position at the moment in that inside left position. And he is looking like a real player at the moment with the goals he's scoring. What's your take on Rashford at the moment?
Yeah, form of his life really at the moment in terms of that resurgence. I think it's 7 goals in 7 games now. There are obviously question marks about, is he playing this well because he's trying to get a contract or a deal at PSG? Or actually is it the other one, which I think is right, is that he seems to have formed a real bond with Erik Ten Hag and a real relationship. And Ten Hag seems to really trust Marcus Rashford and sees him as a pivotal part of his team. Whereas I think previous managers obviously liked Rashford, but didn't give him that sort of like maybe that gratification of you are a top player, a top starter for our team. So yeah, I've been impressed with Rashford, absolutely.
Do you think it's helped him that Ronaldo's moved on? It's allowed him to sort of take a little bit more centre stage, Rashford?
Yeah, him, not just him though. A lot of this team have probably flourished now that Ronaldo's gone. But Rashford is definitely a case for that. That you could argue biggest impact so far of Ronaldo leaving is that Rashford is stepped up. So yeah, and I like him. I've always liked him off the left rather than down the middle. I think we've always been trying to work out where he's most effective, and I think Ten Hag recognises him off the left is exactly his position.
Yeah, absolutely. So just moving on then, we've got the Man City lineup here. So interestingly, Ten Hag really tried to match him up man for man, actually, and it was only really Martial that was outnumbered in terms of the front players there, as you can see. But everywhere else, there were sort of like for like battles all over the pitch. Now, not many teams actually sort of try and go toe to toe with Man City. But it was interesting to see that he was obviously he coached under Pep, didn't he? At Bayern Munich, in charge of the B team, Ten Hag, and I think he really tried to actually. Certainly, first half they were pushing up and pressing them high from goal kicks, not letting them have too much time on the ball, and that was really interesting for me. Obviously, we've got Haaland, who's obviously having an unbelievable season with his goal scoring exploits. You can see that he was. A feature of the first half, especially, was that he was doing a lot of dropping back into midfield and trying to make up the numbers. Now, I feel that's not really his normal game, and it didn't really seem too natural for him. But what we did see when that was happening was that Varane was really, really tightly marking him and following him. As far as Haaland dropped, Varane was right up behind him, which was really interesting for me. It didn't allow him to turn, and obviously they don't have that focal point up front then. This obviously would then leave a space for someone like Bernardo or De Bruyne to potentially run into, but then Casemiro was always on hand to just drop back in and cover that. So there were clear responsibilities for each player in the Man United team in terms of nullifying the Man City threats, and it was really interesting for me how that unfolded across the game. Another person that I think needs a bit of a special mention is Eriksen, because I felt like he patrolled and marshalled Rodri pretty well. a lot of teams potentially fail to get too close to Rodri, and he can really dictate the pace of a game when you play against Man City. Now, Eriksen, don't get me wrong, I don't think Eriksen had his greatest game, but he was always pretty near to Rodri and didn't allow him as much time on the ball as he would normally have.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely what you said about the overloads in the midfield and how Manchester United really suffocated that area of the pitch. I know Casemiro gets a lot of credit and always does get a lot of credit. And again, he had such a strong performance yesterday, and he is going to arguably be one of the best signings of the season. I think when you really look at the experienced type of player you've got and how settled he is. But for me, the one in the midfield who caught my eye yesterday was Fred. Fred for me was great. He's great at sticking to a task, and he's great at sort of nullifying, similar to what you said with Eriksen and Rodri. But I think what Fred gives you is a bit more legs than Eriksen, and he got out and he covered the wide areas as well. So he got out and helped Wan-Bissaka or Malaysia when there were overloads out there, and just really for me, Bernardo, De Bruyne, Rodri couldn't get to the intensity of Fred, Casemiro, Eriksen, and that killed them, absolutely killed them. So the midfield battle was very interesting yesterday, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So if we just come back on the slides here, just put them back into their original shape. What about Luke Shaw at left back? Centre back. Obviously, he normally plays left back. Is he playing left side centre back?
Yeah, so that's 3 games in a row now that Shaw's played there. Keeping out a World Cup winner in Lisandro Martinez. And Ten Hag's obsessed with balance in his side. So it's a very Dutch thing to do, especially through Ajax, is where you have 4 or 5 right-footed players on the right-hand side of your pitch, and you have as many left, and you have to have balance of left-footed players on the left-hand side, definitely at the back. And I think Shaw has slotted in seamlessly at centre half alongside Varane, been a real calm figure. But I think actually what's helped is that I really like the left back Malaysia, who they've signed, the young lad, and it's enabled Ten Hag to get both Shaw and Malaysia on the pitch, and they seem to complement each other really well. So, yeah, another stunning game really from Luke Shaw, in a position that it's quite hard for a left back to go into a centre half position. I think it's easier for a centre half to go and play full back, but a full back to go and play centre half, I think, is harder. What do you think?
Yeah, I probably interesting question actually. I think potentially centre half you can read the game a little bit more. Obviously, you see the whole pitch in front of you, don't you? So you're saying it's harder for a full back to then go and play. It's
harder for a full back to go and then play centre back, where it is for a centre back by trade to go and do a job at right back or left back for a game. Because I think that is harder to do overall. So yeah, Luke Shaw. I mean, how long does he keep playing there? Like, is he going to keep Martinez, the new signing, on the bench for a while, or what? But it's a great derby, and I think all the units of Manchester United did what they had to do. And actually, Martial going off injured helped United, in my opinion, because he was the worst United player on the pitch by a mile.
Obviously, Anthony came on, didn't he? And he sort of gave him a bit of a lease of life up there. And obviously, he's a quality player and can probably play in any one of them front 3 positions. Very quickly, there's been lots of talk about the goal. Was Rashford? Do you think Rashford's interfering? Should that not be given?
Again, the law was correct. That goal should have stood, but that law needs changing. I think if you genuinely slow down the clip, if you watch Edison, he's distracted by Rashford, and if you watch Akanji, the covering centre half, he can't physically get to the ball because Rashford's in his way and he slows him down. So, goal should stand. Correct way to stand, but that law needs changing. And you'd be miffed if it was the other way against your team.
Yeah, I think so. And it also throws into difficulties the whole. If you're a high pressing team and trying to play offside, defenders are going to be in 2 minds about that. Now I think, oh well, I can't push up because even if so and so is not interfering, it creates unnecessary vagueness, I think, about the game, and probably something we don't need. Last thing, then, there's been lots of things circling around social media, and I'm going to throw you off guard a little bit here, potentially, but maybe not, because you know I am. are Man City a worse team this season with Erling Haaland up front?
No, but what they are is a team at the moment who look like they've lost legs, not just up front, but all across the park. And when you look at De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, who are two players that just haven't stepped up this year, I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know if the World Cup with Belgium has really like screwed De Bruyne over. And the other thing about Bernardo Silva is there's all this chat and speculation about him to Barcelona. And I just look across the park at the moment, and I just think there is a significant issue there. I can see why there's this argument about Haaland and why they could be worse. But let's be honest, Haaland hardly had a touch of the ball in that first half. In possession.
I think this is potentially part of the problem, though, because listen, he's a world-class centre forward, and his goal scoring has been unbelievable this season. But I just feel in a lot of the real big games over the last few years, they've played with that false nine, whether it's been Bernardo or Jesus, or sometimes De Bruyne has played there, or Foden, who will really almost just drop back in the midfield and allow them to have even more ball possession. So I feel like they're almost playing with one player less in the build-up against these top teams now, because obviously Haaland tends to stay high, doesn't he? And I think it really is it's changed their game mechanics, I think. I think they're probably relying on a centre forward staying higher now, whereas before that wasn't necessarily the thing. The false nine would drop in and get involved in the build-up, and then teams would have no chance to ball off them, and then they'd eventually create their chances that way. I do think it would be interesting to see if they can. I don't think they will this year, like we said before, but it'll be interesting to see in seasons to come if they can find a way of making it really work in the league with Haaland up front, obviously with his goal scoring exports.
Yeah, no, it is true, and obviously you've got to look at Julian Alvarez and his role that he can play. But in that first slideshow that you showed, Haaland was coming deeper there. But where that game was lost yesterday, for me, was the midfield. I think that's where the game was won and lost. And I think Ten Hag chose the right personnel and tactically outdone Pep in that midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Well, thanks again for listening, guys. Please subscribe to Josh's YouTube channel, A View from the Stands. Obviously, I'm Chalk Talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. Drop us a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.